Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a review of one of my favorite books, The Witch's Heart. Now I will tell you up front that this is not a spoiler-free review, so if you have not read this book, stop the video here and go find yourself a copy. The book is 4 years old at the time of this video, so it's been out for a while and it's readily available at bookstores, online booksellers, and libraries. People have had plenty of chance to read it by now. Plus, this is based on mythological tales that are essentially pop culture at this point. This is your warning. Go read it, then come back to this video. The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek is a fantasy novel that retells Norse mythology from an unexpected perspective. It was published in 2021 by Ace, an imprint of Penguin Random House. This is the author's debut novel. A few notes before we begin. 1. Reviews are for readers, not for authors. 2. Nothing in this review is meant as a personal attack on the author. I will never do that in my reviews. And 3. This is one person's opinion. You may or may not agree with me, and that is fine. I welcome discussion in the comments, but outright attacks, ad hominem, and other rudeness will not be tolerated. This book draws on Norse mythology, the religion of the Vikings. The Scandinavian and Icelandic peoples of the Middle Ages had a rich folkloric tradition, with myths and stories passed down through oral tradition almost exclusively. The three sources that have survived into the modern era are the Poetic Edda, by an unknown author, the Prose Edda, by Snorri Sturluson, and Saxo Grammaticus' History of the Danes. All three works were created about the same time in pre-1300s Iceland and Denmark, well after the Christianization of the Norse world. There exists no pre-Christian Norse writings except for a few scattered runestones across the Viking world. In this book, Gornichek writes from the view of an unexpected character. Angerboda is an obscure figure in Norse mythology known only as the mother of Loki's three monstrous children, the giant wolf Fenrir, the world serpent Jormungandr, and the goddess of death, Hel. She is mentioned in the Prose Edda only as the mother of these three, apparently imparting ill, first from the mother's blood, and yet worse from the father's. Little else is known about her from official sources. It is commonly believed that she is the witch that speaks in the Eddic poem Baldur's Dramar, or Baldur's Dreams, though in that poem Odin does not call her by name, instead referring to her as the mother of three monsters. The witch's heart expands Angerboda's story, giving her agency and character and a story of her own. Gornichek subverts the myths in unexpected ways. Angerboda is the eternal witch, surviving, recovering, and reuniting with her past selves. She has no interest in meddling in the affairs of gods, but keeps getting dragged back into the schemes and machinations of Odin. We first meet Angerboda sitting on a riverbank, recovering from burns. She had been burned thrice on a pyre by Odin for refusing to speak a prophecy for him. It is here that she meets Loki, the man who will affect the shape of her life for eons to come. He returns her burned heart to her, a major symbol that returns throughout the novel. Angerboda's heart quite literally has a hole in it that needs to be filled. First to fill that hole is Loki, who follows her to her cave shelter and returns again and again, regaling her with tales of his antics among the gods. Eventually, those visits result in three pregnancies as Angerboda gives birth to Loki's unusual children. Angerboda, once the Seer Gullveig, retreats from her gift of foresight, which manifests as a dark place deep within herself, rife with trauma that she avoids. It is this ability to see fate that drives Odin to seek her out again and again, trying to force her into the darkest depths to reveal the prophecy of Ragnarok. Whenever Angerboda uses this ability to look within, Odin is there waiting for her, pulling her down into that dark place that she fears. Long ago, when the gods were young and Asgard was new, there came a witch from the edge of the worlds. She knew many ancient spells, but she was especially gifted with Seid, a magic that allowed one to travel out of body and divine the future. This greatly appealed to Odin, the highest of the Aesir. When he learned of her abilities, he offered to impart upon the witch his knowledge of the runes in exchange for teaching him Seid. She was uncertain at first. She'd heard enough about Odin to make her hesitate. But she knew he did not share his secrets lightly, which meant her knowledge of Seid must be of great value to him indeed. So she swallowed her suspicions about this grim, one-eyed god and accepted his offer. As they practiced Seid together, the witch found herself drawn farther down than she'd ever traveled before, where she brushed against a place darker than the beginning of time itself. This place frightened her, and the secrets contained there were great and terrible, so she did not dare go deeper, much to Odin's displeasure, for the knowledge he sought above all else was hidden there, and it seemed to him that only she could reach it. Angrboda is a fiercely protective mother, determined to keep her strange children out of sight of the gods by any means necessary. Though she strives to keep her abilities hidden and unused, she sees the fate of her offspring. Fenrir is to kill Odin and be killed by one of Odin's sons. Jormungandr will be killed by Thor, who will in turn die from the serpent's venom. Only Hel's fate remains unseen. When her children are ultimately discovered, it takes a betrayal from Loki and a contingent of Asgard's most powerful gods to take them from her. From here on, there will be spoilers, so pause here if you have not yet read this book. Wounded by Thor's hammer, Angrboda is no longer able to resist Odin as he drags her down into the void, where she reveals to him the full prophecy. After the loss of her children, Angrboda leaves the Ironwood behind to become a wandering witch, plying her potions among giants and mortals alike. She is dogged by her past that she barely remembers, with the unseen fate of her daughter Hel. She knows that Ragnarok is coming soon. She can see the signs. Her sons will die, but she is determined to save her daughter. She starts to seek out her power once again, to ultimately craft a spell that will save not one, but 2 lives. One aspect of this novel that does deviate strongly from the original myths is Angrboda's relationship with the giantess Skadi. They start off as friends, Skadi bringing Angrboda supplies in exchange for her potions. Over time, affection, and eventually love, develops. In the original myths, we have few stories of the goddesses and female characters. One of these rare tales is of Skadi, how she dons men's mail and takes up weapons after the death of her father Thjazi, and goes to Asgard to face down the gods and avenge him. Skadi is depicted in the myths as fierce and protective of those she considers family. This is reflected in the witch's heart as she defends Angrboda and her children. In the book, while Angrboda's villain is Odin, Skadi's main adversary is Loki. She hates and despises him, blaming him for the death of her father. And any tale of the gods and giants of Norse myth must include Loki. He is a trickster and a liar, and he wins no Husband of the Year awards in this book. I feel that Loki's depiction in The Witch's Heart is rather close to his mythological depictions. He's flaky. He's annoying. He can't stop talking, even with his mouth sewn shut. He does outrageous things. When Skadi discovers that he's fathered Angrboda's children, she threatens to castrate him. But what develops between Angrboda and Loki is a deep and abiding love. Even though she finds him annoying, even irritating at times, she cannot help her other feelings for him. They begin to bond after Loki suffers, having his mouth sewn shut by an angry dwarf, and runs to Angrboda for help and comfort. She sees a new side of him, hurt and vulnerable, and pities him. Perhaps it is because you're pathetic and I have an overwhelming urge to care for pathetic people, she tells him. Angrboda is a powerful, tragic figure, one that rises from the obscurity of Norse myth to shape the world around her. She defies fate itself to save her children. Angrboda is a strong female character without being the strong female character. She is flawed, she is human, she fails, but in the end, she rises. This book has been described as a feminist retelling because of the female protagonist and the sapphic relationship that slowly develops between Angrboda and Skadi. Yet the book and Angrboda's life still center around a man, Loki. Even after she ends her marriage with him, she is still bound to his fate. She frees him from his torture, protects him from their vengeful sons, and her final vision is of Loki dying during Ragnarok. He is the final ghost that reaches her in the very end, before she burns for the last time. So no, I don't consider this a feminist book, but a book about a woman who loved an unreliable man. The plot is driven by Loki's antics, from getting his mouth sewn shut to birthing an 8-legged horse, to Ragnarok itself. Yet this book does, as one reviewer on Goodreads put it, help fill the woman-shaped holes in mythology. Yet for all the praise of this book so far, there are a few valid criticisms that I will touch on. First is that the book mirrors Madeline Miller's Circe too strongly. This, I think, is due to the synchronicity of myths from around the world, and not a fault of the author. Second is that Angrboda does very little in the first half of the book. She lives in her cave, visited by Loki and Skadi, and raises her children when they are born. I will disagree with this point. She is in hiding, recovering from a terrible trauma inflicted on her by a man who is determined to find her. Then she is stuck raising children while Loki gallivants off across the Night Realms. You try going on adventures with a toddler on your hip, especially a special needs one. The third criticism is valid, I think. It concerns the writing in the book. While the prose is wonderful, the dialogue leaves something to be desired, mainly from an overuse of emphasis. It seems that every line spoken by one character or another has extra emphasis on certain words. This can get annoying at times. I found the audiobook to be a better experience than reading the ebook. If the overuse of emphasis does bother you, give the audiobook a try. The narrator, Jane Entwistle, gives a fantastic performance. So, after these unfortunate flaws, do I still recommend The Witch's Heart? Absolutely. Any book will have its flaws. Authors are human and we make mistakes. And while not every book is for every reader, I can say that if you enjoy mythological themes, trauma healing, discovering your own power, and slow burn sapphic romances, give this book a try. I have a number of favorite quotes from this novel. There is a difference between understanding and forgiveness. It is possible to have one without the other. Guilt is a heavy thing, Mother Witch. It is best left behind if you want to move forward. I am Hungerboda Iron Witch, the old one, Mother Witch, who birthed the wolves that chase the sun and moon, former wife to Loki and mother of both the ruler of the dead and the two creatures of chaos destined to bring about the doom of the very beings who ruined our lives. I can do this on my own. What comes next for beings like us? Loki wondered. Angrboda tore her gaze away from the fire and looked him in the eye. A sudden peace settled over her like unlike anything she'd ever felt before. Eternity, she said, and just as he leaned in as if to kiss her, he was gone, as though a gentle gust of wind had carried him off into the sky. And every now and then a child or two would come home after catching glimpses of figures moving through the forest. A woman in a man's tunic guiding animals into their traps or aiding them in the hunt. A nimble man with grass-green eyes grinning at them as he dashed through the trees as if walking on air, daring them to give chase. A man in a broad-brimmed hat inclining his head in pride as they passed. Or a woman in a tattered traveling cloak giving them a serene smile from beneath her hood before vanishing into the morning mist. The Witch's Heart is available on Amazon and from all major booksellers. Please support your local bookstores. If they do not have this book on the shelf, request it. The same goes for your local library. Your librarian can help you request books from other libraries or take suggestions to add to the library's collection. This is one of my favorite books. The language, the prose, the amount of research the author did shine in this work. And the ending utterly destroyed me. I've never ugly cried so hard at the end of a book as I did with this one. It wrecked me. The final passage brings it all together. And this is what the little girl would tell her children, and what they would tell their children long after the ones who came before were gone. They say that an old witch lived in the east, in Ironwood, and there she bore the wolves who chased the sun and moon. They say she went to Asgard and was burned 3 times upon a pyre, and 3 times was she reborn before she fled. They say she loved a man with scarred lips and a sharp tongue, a man who gave her back her heart and more. They say she loved a woman, too, a sword-wielding bride of the gods, as bold as any man and fiercer still. They say she wandered, giving aid to those who needed it most, healing them with potions and spells. They say she stood her ground against the fires of Ragnarok until the end, until she was burned a final time, all but her heart reduced to ashes once more. But others say she lives yet. Go read this book.